Hi everyone, welcome. Today we're going to be investigating the topic of figure to ground, which is a really interesting topic to explore in art. And I'm going to get this up full screen for you. So in essence, figure is the subject. Let's get this up there, you can see. Figure is the subject and ground is the background. This is another principle in art and design. Essentially, the main idea is to separate and therefore emphasize the figure, which is the subject, from the ground, which is the background, in order to give your composition impact. Okay, so here what we have a very strong figure to ground relationship, a black circle against a white background. This is the essence of figure to ground. This is an image by Trent Park, an amazing Australian photographer. And this photograph has what I would consider to be a very strong figure to ground ratio. So if we break this down, just by looking exclusively at the tones in the image, we can see we have some blacks down the bottom of the image. We also, in the top left, we have some darker tones, top right as well. This sort of helps just to frame the image really well, sort of like a frame within a frame. And this, especially, when we have this figure in the very center of the frame in silhouette and contrasted really well against the light grays and whites of the water. So I would say this photograph has a very strong figure to ground relationship. And what's also evident within the frame is this clear hierarchy of information. And this is a technique that painters like Velázquez would do in Spain in the 1600s. So the most important figure here gets the strongest figure to ground. Then number two, who's sort of reaching out to our main figure here, gets the next best figure to ground relationship, next best contrast. Then we have the less important figures depicted underneath our most important figure. They get the next best figure to ground. So this is kind of a working idiom in terms of lighting and in terms of these figures. So it's kind of like a design game of these figures diminishing in size and contrast as they move further and further into the background. As a side note, I just want you to consider, how does this make our main figure here look? What does it look like to you? The most important figure in the frame, for me, it almost looks like a deity, rising up to the surface. Kind of interesting way to portray someone. This is another example by Trent Park. This time we have a white figure against a black background to create a strong figure to ground relationship, which again, really just helps to emphasize this man within the frame. It's almost like a visual stop sign saying, look here, you can do this to your own images too. This is Ansel Adams, and I'm sort of trying to include a bit of variety here because I don't know what you like investigating, whether it's people or landscapes or, your pets. And it's interesting to consider that Ansel Adams nearly became a professional pianist. Okay, so I think it's interesting to view his work in terms of rhythm, because I think it's a language that he would have understood really well. It's also interesting to view this image in terms of light, or even light switches turning on and off, because every time Ansel Adams changes planes, he also changes values. So here we have a section of the frame which is lighter than this area over here. So it goes from light to dark. This area is lighter than this area over here. We move to dark, the light to dark, the light to dark. So this is a kind of visual rhythm which pulses underneath the surface of the image, and Ansel Adams does it in a really compelling way. This is a painting by Felix Vallotton called Moonlight. Same principle, okay? We're moving from light to dark to light to dark. This visual rhythm which pulses underneath the surface of the landscape image. So I'm hoping you learnt something there, figure to ground as well as rhythm. You can use this in your images, again, whether that's painting, drawing, photographs. It's a really simple technique to use. Interested to see how you go with it. Give it a go and we'll have a look at it in classes.